Hello and welcome to In Touch with Durham County. I'm Deborah Craig-Ray, General Manager of Strategic Planning and Innovation. Joining me is our co-host, Wendy Jacobs, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Deborah. We use this show to share vital information about the many programs and services provided by Durham County Government.
It's our pleasure to welcome our Durham County Sheriff, Clarence Birkhead, today. He talks to us about his law enforcement background and how he is approaching his new role as Durham County's Chief Law Enforcement Official. My Brother's Keeper is a program designed to help young men and boys of color succeed in education and careers. It's modeled after the national My Brother's Keeper program that was created by former President Barack Obama. My Brother's Keeper Durham Manager Edmund Lewis joins us to talk about MBK Durham. Chair Jacobs, let's begin our conversation.
Thank you, Sheriff Birkhead, for being with us here today. It's great to welcome you in your role and having you on the show. Can you please tell us about what inspired you to, well, first tell us about your background in law enforcement before you came to Durham County.
Yeah, very good, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, I've started my law enforcement career over 35 years ago, almost 35 years ago. And I've worked in every facet of law enforcement, and I started out as a deputy sheriff. So sort of the natural progression for me to one day be the sheriff. And I moved to Durham in 1988, and it's obviously been home ever since then. And being sheriff gives you a lot of opportunity to have broader impact in the community while still obviously being connected to law enforcement. So it just felt right, and it felt like the right thing to do at this time in Durham, and so I'm very excited about the possibility and the opportunity.
Well, we're excited to have you here and as a part of Durham County Government. And can you tell us a little bit about, besides you felt like it was the right time, but more specifically, what motivated you to run for sheriff?
Absolutely. Well, I came to Durham in 1988, and we all know that this is not the same Durham as it was in 1988. Law enforcement should not stay stagnant either. We need to grow along with our Durham, with our city, keeping up with the progressive ideas and the innovation. And law enforcement has also gone through a transformation over those years. So I felt like I had prepared myself to be the change agent for our law enforcement here in Durham, particularly at the sheriff's office, so that we can modernize our practices and our philosophies and keep up with the pace that Durham is growing at a very fast pace. So we need to keep up as well. I feel like right now is a good time. Durham's going through a bit of a renaissance. So we want our law enforcement to be out in front of that, to be part of that. Very exciting time to be here and be as innovative and proactive as we can. I feel like I bring experiences and knowledge to the table, and I think I'm the leader to do that for the sheriff's office.
Yeah, well, thank you. And so part of your role as incoming sheriff is involves leadership, and I'm just wondering if there are any special programs that you attend. I know as county commissioners we have those types of leadership training. So is that something that is also offered to you?
Yes, here in North Carolina, we're very fortunate. We have our universities here. We have Duke, NC State, North Carolina Central, and we all partner together. And for the sheriffs, new sheriffs particularly, there's something called the North Carolina Association of Sheriffs Leadership Institute. And I have just finished my second week at the Institute. It's a 4-week program. We go every 6 months. So I actually took my first course prior to becoming the sheriff, prior to being sworn in. And it covers a plethora of issues and topics that we as new sheriffs have to be familiar with and ready to go to work with. So it's a great program, and we bring in subject matter experts from all across North Carolina and some even beyond. And our most valuable treasure is being able to talk to veteran sheriffs who have sort of lived these experiences, who have stepped in the holes that we're trying to avoid stepping in, and giving us the insight that they've gained over the years. My next Institute class is in September. Looking forward to it. It's a way for us to begin developing new relationships. There are 39 new sheriffs in North Carolina with this past election. So we're all learning together, but excited about it. So that gives us a leg up, so to speak, as far as becoming sheriffs.
Outstanding, yes, yes. So I recall at your swearing in, you stated a few of your priorities. Would you mind sharing some of those with us?
I would. They haven't changed. I still want the sheriff's office to what I always say, to be the best of the best. And in order for us to accomplish that, we all have to work together. As I mentioned earlier, my leadership style is about change, and we have to be able to change and keep pace. But my priorities going into the sheriff's office are to listen, to learn the culture, to evaluate what we're currently doing, and then begin to implement. We're always going to look at public safety from a holistic point of view. What that means is we're looking at everything that contributes to crime and how we can improve on those and ultimately improve on the quality of life. As the sheriff, I oversee the detention center, which is my #1 priority. Right now, our numbers are down, but we still house about 408, 410 individuals who need the best care possible, whether it's mental illness or dealing with an addiction or a health issue, or simply being a weekender who has unfortunately made some mistakes and they have to pay for those. But we want to run a facility that is top-notch, and we want to be cutting edge, and that translates into better training for our detention officers, equipping our staff with what they need. And then on the other side of the house, we have a full complement of law enforcement services. So just like the Durham Police Department, we do all the law enforcement services that any other agency in law enforcement would do. So again, there we want to be cutting edge. We want to be leaders in this area in law enforcement. And then finally, I spoke earlier to Deborah about having a regional approach to law enforcement. We can't solve these crime issues together. So working closely with Chief Davis and the men and women of the Durham Police Department and neighboring counties and other sheriffs to really have a comprehensive approach to law enforcement. And I think that's the only way we can really make a difference in combating crime and addressing some of the issues that we deal with day in and day out.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can recall that frequently newly elected sheriffs will, come into the office, and of course, will bring several folks to support administratively, financially, and in other ways to sort of help manage a complex organization. Can you talk about who you've brought into your circle to sort of help you manage this this new department?
Yeah, I brought in some really good talent. But I'd first like to mention the talent that's already there. There are a lot of great men and women who work for the Durham County Sheriff's Office, and I'm happy to say most of them have stayed. That's not always the case,
right.
But we have some talent in the Sheriff's Office that we are now cultivating and really bringing those men and women up to speed as to where we want to take the office and what my vision is. So that's been really, really helpful for us, because you can't replace that institutional knowledge. No matter how good your talent is from the outside, you need to maintain that if at all possible. And then I brought in some individuals. For the first time ever, I brought in a chief of staff, which is not historically a position in a sheriff's office. But with an agency this size, with over nearly 500 employees, and certainly 250, 260 unincorporated area that we pay attention to, then inside the city, I need someone to pay attention to some of the administrative tasks. And that individual is Mr. Preston Edwards. He's going to be overseeing personnel, finance, and as we go forward and make some organizational changes, his plate will grow also. I also brought in Miss Grace Marsh, who is the Director of Community Engagement. Again, something that has not been done here in our Sheriff's Office before, as a link for me to stay directly connected to our community. Grace's job is to go out and make sure that we hear what's working as well as what's not working, and give our residents a direct line of communication to the Sheriff's Office. And so I'm excited about those two positions, and as we move forward over the next few months, we're going to be creating other opportunities and moving the organization around. As I said, I want to get in and sort of get my feet wet, and then we'll start to tweak the organization moving forward.
Excellent. And I think you kind of mentioned this a little earlier. A lot of people don't always know the difference between an elected sheriff and an appointed police chief. Can you kind of talk about how that works in Durham?
Yeah, we can. The chief of police, the Chief Davis, whom we're lucky to have, is hired by the city manager. So that means she can be fired by the city manager. I mean, she's doing a great job, so I don't think that's going to happen. And then on the other side of the house, the sheriff is an elected position. It's been around since the Constitution. Before there was a county, there was actually a sheriff, believe it or not. So the sheriff is elected by the people, and I serve the men and women of this county, which incorporates the city. So a lot of people think that I only say grace over the county, or I'm only responsible for the unincorporated areas, but that's not the case. The Durham City sits inside Durham County, so I serve all of Durham and answer to the people.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I'm glad you also raised that, because I think what's unique as well is that you are the person who is in charge of the office of the sheriff. The county provides the budget, but you make the decisions, and that's also, I think, a unique relationship as well.
It is,
Yes.
and it can be challenging from
Yes.
time to time.
Yes.
But you're right.
Yes.
The sheriff is an office that has constitutional power, and the county commissioners are responsible for the budget.
Right.
So it's a unique relationship, but that has worked for almost 150 years in North Carolina. So we're gonna change it and make it better.
Absolutely.
And
And we've got time for about one more
Okay.
question.
Well, Sheriff Birkhead, could you tell us more about how you plan to collaborate with other law enforcement agencies?
Yeah, particularly starting right here in Durham. Chief Davis and I have already had conversations about how we can work together. Both agencies have finite resources, so it just makes sense for us to collaborate on every front possible. Yesterday, we were in a meeting talking about sharing resources, trying to address some of the gun violence that's going on in our city and in our county. So developing that partnership, and at the ground level all the way to the top, she and I have constant conversation on how we can attack crime better. We're also doing that with our neighbors in Orange County, Wake County, Vance County, and Granville County as well, because we know crime has no boundaries. So again, one of my campaign promises was to have a regional approach to law enforcement, and we're starting to see that realized by developing these relationships, certainly here in the Triangle and beyond.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Sheriff Birkhead, this time has really gone fast.
It really has.
And we've very much enjoyed having you with us. And again, we look forward to having you join us again, and we can continue this very robust conversation, and you'll have a lot more things to report on to us.
Absolutely. I look forward to coming back. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for all you do. And we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll hear about My Brother's Keeper Durham. Stay with us.
Testing. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy.
Welcome back. Commissioner Jacobs, let's continue our show.
Thank you, Deborah. And Edmund, it's great to have you here with us today. Can you tell us about how you came into this field of Black male achievement, and just a little bit about your background before being the director of My Brother's Keeper program?
Okay. I went to North Carolina Central University back in 2004, and I'm aging myself a little bit, from 2004 to 2008. But before then, in high school, my senior year in high school, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to college. I wasn't around individuals who really had college-going aspirations, and I thought about going to the Navy and or the Air Force. But I had someone actually stop me on my way to the office and asked me what I really wanted to do. And I told him I wanted to go to college and run track, but I could not afford to take the SAT. And I didn't think I had the grades to go to college. And he said, well, I'll help you. And he reached out and became a great support system. And I got an SAT waiver and an application waiver. And a week before school started, I was down here at North Carolina Central University applying and had grades good enough to become to be in the Chancellor's Scholars Dorm, and the rest is history. Got in college and really didn't take it serious until my sophomore year, and then realized my true potential because somebody told me that I could go to graduate school. So I became serious about next steps after undergrad, and received about 16 or 17 different scholarships, and the University of Michigan offered me an opportunity to go for a 10-month advanced master's degree program, and I accepted the opportunity because I then wanted to go back to North Carolina after I finished my degree, and got there, landed a job, an internship in philanthropy, which also led to volunteer opportunities in Detroit. And my volunteer areas was supporting young men of color in Detroit high schools that did not know if they wanted to go to college. So I started doing that, and my job at the time in philanthropy offered me a 5-hour opportunity per week to volunteer in the communities that we funded, and I chose one of the communities, and I supported young men going to college, and they were going to college, and I stepped away from philanthropy and started doing this work full-time and created a nonprofit, and the rest is history. I've just been doing the work and really learning and better understanding of the different challenges that it takes and the support systems that it takes to really support young men in this space.
Well, it's a great story of just how important mentors are, and also following your passions and your interests. Can you tell us what you consider the top 3 issues facing young men of color today?
That's a great question. We could say a lot of things are associated with the issues, you could say, but personally I think the lack of mentorship. Our young men, they know what they want to do. Sometimes they just need the guidance. Vocational education. College isn't for everyone. And I tell individuals now, some of the young men in my program, if I knew that I could get an associate's degree from Durham Tech and have 2 to 3 dump trucks working on 147 or at a university, and go to community college, I think that's what I would have probably done, because for some, there's been this push that 2 years isn't great enough. If you don't go to a 4-year university, you haven't went to college and you haven't received proper education. So that mentorship, vocational training, and I would also say just ongoing support, right? Just someone to check in. Many young men of color feel like they don't have the space to just dialogue and just, let things out that they need support with. Many times it's just knowing somebody that knows somebody that can support, something so small. One of the things that one of my mentees, he was looking at he transferred from Alabama State to Morehouse, and he was a Andrew Young International Fellow. Well, he didn't tell anybody that he needed $5,000 to go to Ghana for a trip until last minute. So on his next trip, I told him to start a GoFundMe page, and he raised about $9,000, and he sent everybody that's funded him a gift back from the trip. So the mentorship and just believing in them and having those conversations are very paramount to the growth and success of young men.
Absolutely. So you've kind of talked about this a little bit, but can you tell us about some of the initiatives that you think are critical that need to happen in Durham in all areas, academically, entrepreneurially, athletically to
Yeah.
support young men of color?
So what we've been doing at MBK Durham since I've been here is really getting a geographical landscape and assessment of what's happening in Durham. And one thing that I, was telling a friend was, young men, they don't get to have fun anymore. They don't just, they have to watch after their little brother or little sister. They have to be home and they have to be the man of the house. So what we did, one thing that was really cool that we did was we sponsored the middle school football championship post pizza party. Right, so all those P's, but we sponsored that to ensure that win or lose, we support you guys. We congratulate you. Another thing that we did that was really, really essential was the day after Father's Day, the Durham Bulls had a baseball game. And I realized that, Mellow Mushroom is right across the street from the state. So we did a pre-party at Mellow Mushroom, and we brought out about 260 fathers and their kids to the game. I would say 160 of them didn't register, but we had to go back and get additional tickets to ensure that they got a chance to enjoy the game and the environment. And it was really life-changing. Another thing that we look at is how can we provide pipeline opportunities for young men in college to ensure that they're able to articulate what it is that they want to do before they graduate. Many of them don't know, so they spend time before they graduate stressed and depressed about not knowing what they want to do because they want to live up to the status of I'm doing something great afterwards. And many times it's just having that support system. So that's one thing that we really look into. But I'm also thankful that we have a team that really have innovative and create ongoing conversations to ensure that we are constantly thinking about the nuances and the changes that happen for our young men in Durham.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Now, we've heard a bit about the mini-grant program that we have coming up. Talk a little bit about how that will work, the application process and everything.
So the idea behind the mini-grant program was in my past experience in Detroit, one thing that I noticed was some organizations just needed a little bit of support to propel them where they were. That can be money for a laptop, that can be money for food, snacks, vending, to really propel their program. So I was thinking about how can we support programs and how can we support programs in Durham that praise, promote, and elevate the young men of color and stakeholders that are working in this space. So with the mini-grant program, the intent is, number one, to find out organizations that are doing this great work that are in silos. And I know that I was in the nonprofit space. My head was down and I was doing so much work. And if it involved just getting the work done, that's all I would do. Number two, it gave us an opportunity to really pull these groups together and see who's doing the same work, cross collaboration, shared learning. That's one thing that's really critical and impactful. And lastly, number three was the opportunity to be praised about doing great work. This work is ongoing, it's never ending, and we have to have support systems to push and really let people know that, hey, you're not in this alone. This is something I'm learning. I want to share this with you.
So, and we'll make sure to put some information on the screen about that so that people can reach out and get more information as it goes forward. Now, I know we've got an upcoming event with North Carolina Central University. It's called the Boys and Men of Color Conference. Talk to us about that quickly.
Yeah, the inaugural Boys and Men of Color Conference on April the 13th, 2019 from 8 to 2, and it's in partnership with North Carolina Central University's Male Achievement Center. What started as 250 registered, we have over 400. Wow. 400 individuals that are registered, and we had to cut the site off. Now we're getting emails from moms and parents saying, well, my son needs to come to this event, or how can I get my son in this? We see that it's closed. And we're not turning away anyone, right. And we can't, right? And we want to have the space where we can listen to our young men, but also provide feedback. And we have a really great, and I'm not going to mention it now, we have a really great idea moving forward that will support this conference and support our young men moving forward. So April the 13th, 2019, from 8 to 2, we have volunteers, we have vendors. It's a great event, and we're excited about that.
Well, I've been sharing that at our announcements every meeting, so that's wonderful to hear. Yeah.
Outstanding, outstanding. Well, we are about out of time, but I know you recently went to the MBK Rising Conference, and you met former President Barack Obama, and NBA star Steph Curry was there, and Grammy-winning singer John Legend. How was that, and what were your two biggest takeaways from the conference?
Yeah, the MBK Rising was really great. This year marks the year number 5 that President Obama then signed the My Brother's Keeper initiative as a national program. And to get him there to really talk about the support and the sustainability of these programs to support Black male achievement, it was really phenomenal. One thing that I learned was everybody is doing this work at a different pace, right? So while there's 6 milestones, there's individual groups that are focusing on 3 and really pushing those forward. And number 2 was you're not alone in this work for Black male achievement. That's one thing that was really critical, that was helpful for me. Also, how do we begin to start pushing philanthropy to start donating more money? Out of the billions of dollars that they spend annually, only 4% goes back to Black male achievement. So that's about $100 million a year in this space. And they said 80 billion, only about 100 million goes to, so it's about 4%. And one thing that's really important about this is we can begin to move the needle on some of these challenges that really impact our young men and really support and sustain, our boys and young men of color that graduate from high school and go to college in the area to become employed specifically in Durham. So that's one thing that we really push, and really one of the key takeaways that I learned to bring back to the Bull City to really begin to move this work forward.
Yeah,
well, we thank you so much for joining us, Edmund. There's a lot of great work going on in our community, and we just really appreciate you coming here and becoming our first MBK manager. How can people get in touch with you for more information?
There's numerous ways. Our website, as well as my phone number, my personal number, and I like to do that because I like to reach out back. So it's 919-560-8154, and I do answer my phone, and I support parents that call and have ideas, and we think those things through. And I'm looking forward to just everybody reaching out to us.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for all the great work you're doing, Edmund. And this has been another wonderful show about the great things happening in Durham County.
Yeah, it's been a great show, very much a milestone show, and we'll have some exciting things to talk about next month as well. And we want to thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on In Touch with Durham County. Cheers.